Ever wonder why the world looks the way it does? And that some of our deepest beliefs are ancient ideas that are repackaged? What if I told you everything that we consider modern is silently favoring one culture over others? Join me as we expose the hidden connection between modernism, Eurocentrism, and primordialism and discover how they shape our lives. Imagine where modernism isn't about art or advancement but is about taking your women, building a larger family of intellects, genetically linked to your nationality, all driven by the modern man, the European descent man. I'm basically going to talk about this and unravel historical roots and other definitions of modernism, dating, socialism, primordialism, and Eurocentrism so that we can all argue and refute those who simply don't let the individual achieve their goals through racism and other sort of ideologies that stay number one. By the end of this video, you'll have a profound understanding of Eurocentrism, primordialism, and modernism, choices, aspirations, and today's decision making in the interconnected world. This video will demonstrate profound importance on individual lives, particularly through the lens of dating preferences and economic imperative. So first, we'll talk about modernism, ideologies of power and purity. Modernism, by definition, nations that are fundamentally shaped by modern forces, such as industrial capitalism, and owe nothing to ancient ethnic heritage. This basically contrasts with the primordialist view, which argue that nations exist in pre-existing ethnic groups, kinship ties, or a subjective sense of kinship or shared ancestry. The most widely accepted modernization theory is a constructive approach. This constructivist approach is the most commonly accepted nationalism theory, proposing that national consciousness emerged due to industrialization, processes like urbanization and mass education, and nationalism as an invented tradition. Intellectuals all over have gathered to reconsider and look at symbols and ideology of nationalism across Europe. This historical role aligns with the user's notion of intellectual family as central to modernism. The objective of nationalism and national identity is to build and maintain a single identity based on shared social characteristics such as culture, ethnicity, geographic location, language, politics, tradition, religion, and belief in a shared singular history. When it comes to modernism, it has to do with today's current events that you can achieve such links to the nations that were before these pre-existed nations. Like, for example, Bangladesh became a nation in 1971, and Europe had a nation way before that. So, through this singular identity, you can see that people try to achieve modernism through being taken by European descendants. So, I have a chart here that will show you exactly what I mean by a nation being sort of this imagined community, and it's pre-valued that there is some historical context, that there is some ethnic heritage and age and culture to it. So here's a chart with that. I'm going to pull it up. Origin of a nation. The modernist view. So here's the four criterion. Definition of a nation. Origin of a nation. Relationship to ethnic heritage. And then on the bottom, it's key proponent. Gemini really helped me out with this, so I was able to find out exactly what it is I needed to talk about to share with you. And it shows a modernist view and a primordialist view. Now, a modernist view is an imagined community. Primordialist view, to the definition of a nation, is pre-existing ethnic group, ancient heritage, and sense of kinship. Modernistic view of a nation's origin, product of modernity, industrial capitalism, state reform. Primordialist view, nations are ethnically formed. So here's the third one, relationship to ethnic heritage. Modernist view owes nothing to ethnic heritage. Primordialist view, nations are based on shared ancestry or ethnic core. And we won't really talk about the key proponent. Now, if we look at trying to get modernism in this sort of sense where you have this primordialist view, let's say you're from India and you're trying to marry Nick Jonas, like that already happened. You might come from a background where the nation was already there before American British colonizers came and made nations off of them. So the modernist view, they also had some heritage that's ethnic to them before they became nations, like the Roman Empire. And some of them still to this day argue and refute that, hey, the Roman Empire also conquered India and things like that. And those people are sort of accepted, but not sort of accepted. It's not really a professional thing, but it is brought up and talked about at work, and it reinforces some people. And it's not a modernist view. So if a minority does that modernist view, it's good because you're not going to talk about, or he's not going to say anything about this sort of employer or employment, or this person in public talking about how Roman Empire conquered the nation. Not to say the war elephants didn't come from India. Again, this primordialist view where technology like AI and other modern technologies like social media and markets that are being dominated by the West and Europe are sort of being in this marketing position where they say, hey, we have the technology and the social background in English and these languages that produce artificial intelligence, where they start to take the initiative to give up their pregnancy so that their child can have a better future. But here in this study from Gemini, it is a confirmed and good research topic, so I give it a thumbs down. And it's saying that it's a modernist view, but people still utilize this primordialist view. Now, white people are doing that, but you're not supposed to, in addition to America's founding and conquest of Native Americans. So this leads into the dark side of nationalism, eugenics, genes, and nationality. Eugenics is defined as scientifically erroneous theory of racial improvement and planned breeding, which gained considerable popularity in the 20th century. If you look into eugenics, then it is the planned breeding and racial improvement. That's what the 20th century was about. Eugenics say that social behaviors and intelligence were inherited in a simple fashion, if that's what we want to call it. Now, a lot of physicians and scientists would popularize this eugenics idea, but someone today has highly classified it as inaccurate. And still to this day, we have people talking about using it as a way to convince women to give up their pregnant lives or their pregnant capability to white men in the future. That way their social behaviors and their intelligence increases. Eugenics aim to eliminate social ills and create the perfect human being through genetic manipulation, advocating such as involuntary sterilization, segregation, and social exclusion. They sort of mention that bad genes were the reasons why crime would happen rather than the systematic flaws. Now, eugenics can be described or hidden as modernism, and people often fall for that trick. It's really perverted. Eugenics, thought to be a progressive movement, is actually a bad thing. And just to remind you, eugenics is about making sure that the perfect human being is planned by breeding and confusing you, like what we usually see today as America's #1 competition. It's not that eugenics was completely contained like most immigrant cultures and ideals brought to Europe and the rest of the world under America's global policy. It's that it still exists and people still commit to it, but there is more things that you can realize that are more prevalent because somehow it works and someone somewhere could get some, and someone start a family and someone could get married, and there's many things that it just means that they can. Eugenics can basically justify discrimination and perverted discrimination. If you could see what's going on social media, you would probably know. So we go to our next section, feminism, realizing the rise of Eurocentrism and detach other nations that aren't European and offer their pregnancies to these white men or American or European. Eurocentrism, also known as Western centrism, refers to a worldwide view putting European views, values over others, especially those in different regions, often viewing the West as the center of the world and viewing it more superior to other cultures. This perspective has a European viewpoint to be absolute and has served an apologetic view for the colonialism that they've committed to. This sort of ideology, making sure that we're apologetic, has led to the emphasis of European society, this Western viewpoint. Obviously, we all critique this Western viewpoint, and it has come into conflict with the indigenous naturalism before the European discovery. You can confirm this simply by looking at the doll experiment that they did, where they had one doll that was really dark skinned and another doll that was really light skinned, and they all liked the light skinned one. And that's probably going to go further into Eurocentrism and the naturality that you particularly like light skin more. Moreover, the oral traditions that we see today, name calling like Pajit on newest social media technology that's international throughout the World Wide Web at a high rate of information, is consistent because we have oral traditions that we say, hey, we heard about this guy, so we're going to say that he's a Pajit and things like that, or we're going to say Hispanics are criminal, or blacks are this and that, or the Asians are this and that, or Chinese. It's quite evident that Eurocentrism is prevalent today, and the U.S. military backs it. And we have people feeling comfortable that the U.S. military is all over the world pursuing America's interests. Additionally, capitalism is Europeans' specialty, where Asian countries don't have the necessary skills of capitalism to live and succeed like they have. And as we know today, capitalism is forced across the world and democracy is forced across the world, otherwise you get invaded, like we saw what happened to Vietnam. This further reinforces the modern individual who's just out about in the street and is not a government official. Not saying government officials are good, but now he's going to come up to you and start saying something and believe he could do something, and then crime goes up and people start complaining. Another strong idea that we have here is that some individual is going to be the beacon of change so that she gets married to a European guy and change her entire nation for the better. And this is a whole another sort of dilemma that is so rampant and contained and reproduced and re-accelerated so that it happens because the Europeans don't have an arranged marriage system. Eurocentrism in itself has now become a natural sort of thing wherein they show their dominance, but it's backed by military and other things that are non-consistent to the human being but consistent to the animal. We all end up wanting to have this Western sort of kitchen or Western sort of living room, and it is because of this constant tradition. Having this European Western kitchen and television and living room is now a modernism idea. It is further reinforced through academic aspirations and academic standards and through beauty standards and beauty aspirations. And the constant downplay of nations trying to rise, such as Asia, that is not European by women themselves, is a systematic and cultural thing that we've all adapted to, and we find the women that most people are doing this sort of marriage system, how you can get married, that America's system says through this military, that policy, and how you can be an American and be like an American is such that they have said that Eurocentrism is the way to go because everything else is ugly. Now, there are some women who are predominantly anti-Western, and those are some really good women out there who make sure to help your own nation. But there are small groups of people and small individuals who go out of their way just to achieve the Eurocentrism and offer their pregnancy to Western and European descendant men, and have initially collected a lot of information from their nationality and start to present it so that this European descendant can just restart Eurocentrism again and make some companies and Americanize, modernize these backwater ideations from the nationality that this woman has come from. Now, in Eurocentrism, the term woman is particularly the result of many non-Western women not receiving equality in social class, money, status, ethnicity, and other history. Thereby, the word woman misrepresents non-Western women. Post-colonial feminism has really refuted the Western feminism that all women share the same oppression, and they have really come to terms with making sure that they can excel at presenting their wants and desires, even going against their own men and going against the women who say we should all be against his colonizer. Today's modern feminism, or some women on the street, you can actually see them talking about how she also thinks that the white European descendant is a piece of dumb and is literally harassing people with his human being status. Western feminism can also be saved as savior to making the women who are oppressed by Muslim men to come into the light. So it is sort of God's work that she wants to save Muslim women. And this Eurocentrism is thanks due to the part of colonization, but I don't see any history retaining the conquest of the Arabs other than Arabs and Christians always fighting when the Arabs are most of them are Muslim, some of them are not, and things like that. Things like female genital mutilation and wearing headscarves is highly regarded as something bad to the Eurocentric world. Additionally to many other things like trying to modernize their nation, women would also come to offering their pregnant lives to Eurocentric men so that they can save feminism. Now, Eurocentrism might be talked about and how white supremacy might be destroyed by many minorities, but the US dollar is still prevalent in making sure Eurocentrism stays where it is. It's called dollar dominance. Is the dollar a tool of harassment or influence? Eurocentrism, or America, can basically just use the dollar to go into large debt and spend a lot and back their resources up with their military and their gold reserves and other reserves, and make sure everyone else stays out of the competition because they spend so much money on research and other small things that will let you achieve your goals and still take your woman. And with this basic reserve, they can take any nation and say that they're going to administer a sanction, and now they have to pay more for whatever small amounts of money that they have because the USA simply agreed that they don't like it just by how they feel. And what they feel is Eurocentrism and what's affecting their ability to marry and take care of women even from their own women. I'm sort of messed up when I said that, but it's all right. You can probably go back. Countries like China and Russia often exude this sort of intermittent realization that we don't want the USA, and it's quite evident that it's immediate that we don't want the USA, and they commit to making sure the dollar doesn't have any effect on sanctions. Now, dollar dominance has inevitably helped a lot of people, but it's so detrimental to many economies wanting to start and influence the world in their own perspective that it's sort of a harassment technique. This modernism that the USA is going to help everyone in the world is forcing Eurocentrism in your own nations, in your back home. The immigrants that sort of try to get the Western education to make their own are sanctioned, and then the USA and Eurocentrism is put back into their own nation and forcing the Eurocentrism, and they inevitably take women and they cause riots and protests because this sort of nonsense that Europe's can do whatever they want and America can do whatever they want with their military backed by it is sort of ridiculous. It is called exorbitant privilege. Then we have immigrants fueling America by speaking their own language, connecting with their own people and communities, then going back to have an American job, and the immigrants are getting basically nothing, and America's Americanizing and making a killing off whatever immigrants are talking about. In conclusion, the Eurocentrism basically has women who want to modernize their nation, but they're not really empowered to modernize the nation, so they're completely stupid. And the eugenics that they can intellectually improve the gene and nationality of a person by getting married is also another pseudo system to get married that they force this capitalism on you and democracy on you. And the USA backs that up with their military to get invaded like Vietnam is a method to get married because Americans don't have an arranged marriages. If you like this video, hit the like and subscribe.